Welcome everybody to the seasonal diet, eating what our ancestors ate when they ate it like we were evolved to do. Wine, as usual, talking about the history and seasonal availability of this in our ancestral diet. Good news, we are getting into top wine season right now in the late fall. Although wine can be made from things such as rice, plums, cherries, pomegranates, and other fruits, of course the vast majority and the longest history of making wine is done with grapes. Doesn't take a genius or advanced modern wineries. This is a reason that this is the second most ancient alcoholic drink in the history of humans. It's because wine is simple to make and all you really have to do is crush up the grapes, get some juice, and maybe add some yeast and let it sit for a few weeks. Such primitive technology, and really the only alcoholic beverage that may be older than wine is mead, of course, which is made from honey. But we are not sure about that, and that's a long story. We'll have to do another video about mead because we really know a lot more about the history of wine. The oldest evidence we have of winemaking comes from the modern-day country of Georgia, with archaeological finds showing winemaking more than 8,000 years ago, and it slowly spread over time throughout the Middle East and Mediterranean and was widely used pretty much everywhere from Persia to ancient Greece to Rome. We find archaeological evidence of it everywhere, and even the first winery comes up in the caves of Armenia from 6,000 years ago, where they still today make wine. But this is just archaeological finds, mind you. It could have been made wine there much longer before that. The first written records of wine come from ancient Greece almost 3,000 years ago, from the time of Homer, and we see more and more evidence of winemaking all the way from China to Egypt to pretty much anywhere that grapes could be grown. Everyone likes to get a little bit wine tipsy. We like this all over the world. So as you can see, wine is definitely in our ancestral diet in many places in the world. Only problem is we don't have a lot of evidence of it being made in two places. Those two places are the ones where most of you watching this video have ancestry, and that is the north of Europe or Native America. So grapes have not traditionally been able to be grown in those two places. But that's only half the story. Today, and in other times in history, you may not find grapes growing in Scandinavia or in the far north of Canada, but it was not always like this. There have been certain periods in fairly recent history where these places were even warmer than today. The Bronze Age was one, about 3,000–4,000 years ago. We have many traces and archaeological finds that show grapes were grown in Scandinavia. The Viking Age, 1,000 years ago, was another warm period where the Vikings discovered the Americas actually, and it was really the Newfoundland area of Canada, and they called this place Vinland because there were so many grapes growing there, and it was said to have great wine. This was written about in the Viking sagas. Now these places are not exactly ones that are known for growing great wine today, but at certain warm periods in history, grapes and wine have definitely been grown in these places, and it is on our ancestral diets even in the north of Europe or north of Americas. And even if not, for example, if there were certain cold periods of the migration period or the late Middle Ages, for example, wine could have still been easily traded and brought to the north of Europe. Yes, grapes wouldn't have grown there, and they couldn't have made wine themselves maybe at certain points in history, but it would have been no problem for my ancestors, for example, to sail down from Scandinavia, stock up their Viking ship with bottles of wine made in Greece or Spain or Rome, and bring these back to Scandinavia and share the wine tipsiness with everyone else in the village. And that's just the wine made from grapes, of course. We could have always made wine out of other things that are native to Scandinavia, like apples and later on plums. There's lots of wine recipes from all over the world, so we could have easily gotten wine tipsy for thousands and thousands of years, pretty much no matter where your ancestors come from. And right now is the exact right time of year for it. Grapes are usually harvested in the fall. Crush them up, add some yeast, let it rest a few weeks, and you've got wine. It probably is not going to taste very good. Of course, we would all rather drink the wine aged for many years. But as I always say, if it goes down the same hole and out the same hole, it doesn't matter. It is still in our ancestral diet and would have been available at this time of year, right around the late fall. And it would have, of course, been available all over winter too, because it's easily preserved, and it would have lasted us really until we drank the lot of it. So have at it. Wine is great. Do you have any favorite types? Do you like grape wine or maybe from other fruits? Any special recipes where your ancestors are from? Let us all know.